Everything feels finished in episode 10, but the truth is darker than that. Power Book 4 for Season 3 doesn't end with answers. It ends with warnings. Every look, every pause, and every quiet moment is telling you something bad is coming. Next, if you think this finale was just about closing stories, you missed the real message hiding underneath. Episode 10 hits differently because it is not loud for no reason. The episode moves with purpose, and from the very first moments, the tone feels heavier than anything earlier in the season. This is not a celebration episode. This is a fallout episode. The writers slow things down just enough to make every decision feel final. Characters are not talking as much, but their silence says more than words ever could. The mood is tense because everyone knows something has already gone wrong, even if they don't fully admit it yet. What makes this episode powerful is how it treats consequences. Earlier in the season, characters made choices and walked away. In episode 10, nobody walks away clean. Even when someone survives, the cost is written all over their face. You can feel the weight of past mistakes pressing into every scene. This episode reminds us that power always asks for payment, and now it's time to collect. The pacing also tells a story of its own. There are no wasted scenes here. Every conversation moves the plot forward or deepens the damage already done. The show does not rush emotional moments. Instead, it lets them sit, forcing the audience to feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is intentional. It mirrors the fear and doubt the characters are feeling. This is how the show pulls viewers into the chaos without needing explosions every 5 minutes. Most importantly, episode 10 makes it clear that survival does not mean victory. Some characters technically win, but emotionally, they are broken. Others lose without even realizing it yet. This section of the episode exists to reset the tone of the entire series. It tells us that force is no longer about building power. It is about holding onto it while everything falls apart. One of the smartest things about this episode is how it uses small details to tell a bigger story. The writers rely heavily on facial expressions, camera distance, and quiet reactions. When a character pauses before answering a question, that pause matters. When someone avoids eye contact, that avoidance is a confession. These moments are easy to miss, but they reveal more truth than any big speech. Background details also play a huge role. Locations feel emptier, colder, and more exposed. This reflects how safe spaces no longer exist. Places that once felt controlled now feel dangerous. Even familiar settings are filmed differently, reminding viewers that nothing is stable anymore. This visual shift quietly tells us that the world of force has changed. Dialogue is carefully chosen. Characters rarely say what they really mean. Instead, they speak around the truth. Threats are disguised as advice. Promises sound more like warnings. Every line feels like it has two meanings, one for the character hearing it and one for the audience watching. This layered writing rewards viewers who pay attention. Another key detail is how the episode handles timing. Certain events happen too easily, and that should raise concern. When something feels convenient, it usually means a bigger problem is coming later. The episode trains viewers to question moments that seem calm. Calm is not peace here. Calm is the moment before everything explodes. By focusing on these subtle choices, the episode invites viewers to look deeper. The real story is not always happening in the center of the frame. It's happening in the shadows, in the silence, and in the things characters refuse to say out loud. Character behavior in this episode reveals who is truly in control and who is pretending. Some characters appear confident, but their actions suggest fear. Others seem calm because they have already accepted the damage they've caused. This contrast makes every interaction feel dangerous. Nobody is fully honest, not even with themselves. Trust is the biggest theme here. Alliances feel fragile, and even long-standing loyalty is questioned. When characters choose to protect themselves instead of others, it shows how survival has become the only role. The episode makes it clear that trust is now a weakness, not a strength. What stands out most is how certain characters stop reacting. Emotionally, this emotional shutdown is a sign of transformation. It shows that they have crossed a line and cannot go back. The show uses this to quietly tell us who is becoming more dangerous in the future. Silence replaces anger, and that silence is far more threatening. There is also a strong sense of inevitability. Some characters feel trapped by choices they made earlier in the season. No matter what they do now, the damage is already done. This creates a feeling of doom that hangs over the episode. You can feel that the story is pushing these characters toward a collision they cannot avoid. This section of the episode is about exposure. Masks fall without dramatic reveals. Instead, the truth leaks out through behavior. Who hesitates? Who moves first? Who watches instead of acting? These details show us exactly who is ready for what comes next. By the end of episode 10, the show is no longer asking who will win. It is asking who will survive what is coming. The final stretch of the episode feels unresolved on purpose. This is not a clean ending. It is a warning disguised as a pause. The story does not stop, it waits. The emotional tone of the ending is cold and heavy. There is no relief, only tension. Even moments that should feel victorious are muted. This tells the audience that the real consequences have not arrived yet. The episode ends before the fallout fully begins, making the silence after the final scene feel louder than any explosion. What makes this ending strong is its confidence. It does not explain everything. It trusts the audience to understand that something bigger is being built. Loose ends are not mistakes here. They are invitations. The show wants viewers to feel unsettled because that feeling reflects the future of the story. The final message of episode 10 is clear. Power does not protect anyone forever. Every decision made in this season has pushed the story closer to something darker. The episode ends not with closure, but with pressure. Pressure that will eventually break someone. This is why the finale works. It does not comfort the audience. It challenges them. It asks them to look back at everything they thought they understood and question it. Because in Force, the real danger is never what you see coming. It's what's already been set in motion. Episode 10 is filled with moments that feel small on the surface but carry heavy meaning underneath. This episode trusts silence more than dialogue. And that choice is deliberate. When characters stop explaining themselves, it means the story has reached a point where words are no longer enough. You can see this in how conversations feel shorter and more guarded. People speak carefully, choosing what to hide instead of what to say. That shift alone tells us the game has changed. The way characters enter and exit scenes also matters. Some leave without finishing conversations, while others arrive late, already knowing more than they should. These movements hint that deals were made off-screen, and that information is being passed quietly. The show wants viewers to understand that the real action is happening in spaces we don't fully see. What is hidden is just as important as what is shown. Visual choices add another layer of meaning. Characters are often framed alone, even when they are surrounded by others. This creates a feeling of isolation and suggests that alliances are no longer solid, even when people stand together. The distance between them feels emotional rather than physical. This is the show's way of saying trust is gone. Everyone is standing for themselves now. Small reactions carry big clues. A quick glance, a clenched jaw, or a delayed response often reveals fear or regret. These are not random acting choices. They signal inner conflict. Some characters realize too late that they misjudged someone. Others understand they have crossed a line that cannot be undone. The episode does not explain these emotions directly. It lets the audience read them. Timing is another important clue. Certain events happen too smoothly, which should immediately raise suspicion. In this world, nothing works out easily without a cost. When something feels calm or settled, it usually means trouble is being delayed, not avoided. The episode plants these moments to make viewers uneasy, even if they cannot explain why. The use of familiar locations also changes in this episode. Places that once felt controlled now feel exposed. The camera lingers longer, showing emptiness. Where safety once existed, this tells us that power structures are weakening, control is slipping, and no place is truly secure anymore. The environment itself becomes a warning. Dialogue often carries double meaning. What sounds like support can also be read as a threat. Advice feels more like manipulation. Characters speak in ways that protect them later, leaving room to deny. Responsibility. This kind of language shows that everyone is thinking ahead, preparing for fallout rather than resolution. What makes these details powerful is how quiet they are. The episode does not point them out. It expects the audience to notice. These hidden clues are the foundation of what comes next. They show us that while episode 10 feels like an ending, it is actually a setup built from subtle choices. Every silence, every pause, and every unfinished moment is a signal. The storm hasn't passed. It's gathering strength. Episode 10 exposes the truth about every major character without forcing dramatic speeches. The biggest shift in this episode is emotional. Characters are no longer reacting with anger or fear. Many of them act with restraint, and that restraint is dangerous. It means they are thinking ahead, planning survival instead of revenge. Some characters appear confident on the surface, but their actions tell a different story. Confidence here often hides desperation when someone pushes too hard to appear in control. It usually means they feel power slipping away. You can see this in how certain characters over-explain their decisions or rush conversations. These moments reveal insecurity, not strength. The episode quietly teaches us that true power in this world is silent and patient. Loyalty is tested in subtle ways. Nobody openly betrays anyone in this episode. But trust is weakened through hesitation. When a character pauses before agreeing, that pause matters. When someone chooses not to speak up, that silence is a choice. Episode 10 shows that betrayal does not always come with violence. Sometimes it comes with inaction. Letting something happen can be just as damaging as causing it. One of the most important themes here is emotional shutdown. Certain characters stop showing regret or guilt. This is not healing. It is transformation. The episode signals that these characters have accepted who they are becoming. Once that acceptance happens, they become far more dangerous. They are no longer fighting their own conscience. They are focused only on results. The episode also highlights characters trapped by past decisions. Earlier choices come back quietly. Not with explosions, but with consequences that feel unavoidable. These characters are boxed in by the paths they chose. No matter how smart or ruthless they become, they cannot escape what they set in motion. This creates a sense of doom that hangs over their scenes, even when they smile. It feels forced. Power dynamics shift through small moments. Who speaks first? Who interrupts? Who waits? These details show us where authority truly lies. Sometimes the person with the least dialogue holds the most control. Episode 10 uses this technique to redefine leadership. Power is no longer about commanding a room. It's about controlling outcomes without being noticed. Fear also changes shape in this episode. It is no longer loud or chaotic. It is quiet and focused. Characters are afraid, but they hide it behind planning and calculation. This controlled fear pushes them to make colder decisions. Emotional connections weaken because attachments become risks. By the end of this section, it becomes clear that Episode 10 is not about heroes or villains. It is about survivors and casualties. Even if some casualties are still standing, the episode strips characters down to their core instincts. Protect yourself. Stay ahead. Trust no one completely. This shift defines the future of the story and explains why the next chapter will be even darker. The final stretch of episode 10 is designed to feel unfinished, and that choice is intentional. The episode does not rush to explain outcomes or tie emotions into a neat ending. Instead, it leaves space. That space is uncomfortable, and it is meant to be. The writers want viewers to sit with uncertainty. Because uncertainty is now the natural state of this world, nothing is settled. Even When it looks like it is, what stands out most is how the episode avoids emotional release. There is no moment where characters truly relax. Even scenes that appear calm carry an underlying tension. Smiles feel forced. Silence feels heavy. This emotional restraint tells us that the damage done throughout the season has not fully surfaced. Yet, the episode ends before the consequences can explode, which makes the ending feel colder and more serious than a typical finale. The final scenes also shift the focus away from action and toward reflection. Characters are shown thinking rather than reacting. This shows that the real conflict has moved inward. They are no longer fighting just enemies. They are fighting the weight of their own choices. This internal struggle becomes the true threat. Going forward, when characters stop reacting emotionally, they start making decisions that change everything. Another important detail is how the episode handles resolution. Some problems appear solved, but the solutions feel temporary. The show presents these moments carefully, almost quietly, so viewers might mistake them for closure. But when you look closer, you realize they are fragile. They depend on trust that no longer exists and control that is already slipping. This false sense of resolution is one of the episode's biggest warnings. The ending also removes the idea of safety. No character feels protected by their position or past success. Even those who seem to be on top are shown alone, separated from allies or comfort. This visual isolation reinforces the idea that power comes with loneliness. The higher someone rises, the fewer people they can trust. The episode ends by reinforcing the truth without spelling it out. There is also a strong sense that the story has shifted direction. The season began with ambition and expansion. It ends with containment and survival. Characters are no longer asking how to grow stronger. They are asking how to avoid losing everything. This shift changes the rules of the story. It raises the stakes because desperation leads to more dangerous decisions than ambition ever could. The lack of clear answers in the final moments is not a weakness. It is a statement. The episode is telling viewers that the story is far from over and that the next chapter will not be about rebuilding. It will be about enduring what has already been set in motion. Every unresolved thread feels intentional, placed carefully to create pressure rather than confusion. By closing the episode this way, the show reminds us that endings are rarely clean in this world. They are quiet, tense, and full of consequences. Waiting to surface, episode 10 does not give peace, it gives warning. And that warning makes the silence after the final scene feel louder than any action ever could. Episode 10 quietly resets the entire future of the story without openly announcing it. This is not done through big reveals or shocking twists, but through positioning. Characters end the season standing in very specific places emotionally and strategically. Where they end up matters more than what just happened. The episode carefully places everyone on the board for what comes next, and once you see it, the setup becomes clear. One of the biggest signals for the future is unfinished business. Several conflicts are not resolved, only paused. This pause is dangerous because it allows resentment, fear, and ambition to grow. The episode shows characters choosing not to act when they easily could have. That hesitation is not mercy, it is calculation. These characters are saving their moves for later, which tells us the next phase of the story will be more strategic and less emotional. Power structures are also quietly changing. Some characters who once relied on strength or fear are now forced to rely on planning and patience. Others are pushed into leadership roles they may not be ready for. The episode hints that authority will soon come from information rather than force. Who knows what, and who knows too much, becomes more important than who has the biggest muscle. Another important setup comes from isolation. Many characters end the season more alone than they started. Alliances are thinner, support systems are weaker. This isolation is not accidental. It creates vulnerability. Vulnerable characters are easier to manipulate, easier to push into bad decisions, and easier to turn against each other. The episode uses this emotional distance to prepare the ground for future conflict. The tone also shifts toward long-term consequences. Earlier seasons often focused on immediate survival. Episode 10 signals a move toward legacy and damage that lasts. Characters are now living with the results of their actions rather than reacting to threats. This change slows the story in a meaningful way. It allows tension to build over time instead of exploding all at once. There are also clear signs that new alliances will form, but they will not be built on trust. They will be built on necessity. The episode shows characters sharing space without sharing loyalty. This creates fragile partnerships that can collapse at any moment. These alliances are meant to feel unstable because instability keeps the story unpredictable. The episode also hints that past mistakes will return in unexpected ways. Choices made earlier in the season are not finished affecting the story. They are planted seeds. Some characters believe they escaped consequences, but the episode strongly suggests those consequences are only delayed. This creates a sense of inevitability. The future feels heavy because the past is still active. By the time the episode ends, the story is no longer about who is winning right now. It is about who is prepared for what comes next. Episode 10 does not end a chapter. It locks the door behind the characters and forces them forward. Everything from this point on will be shaped by the pressure built here. The season finale doesn't promise chaos immediately. It promises something worse, a slow collapse that nobody can fully control. By the time episode 10 ends, the audience is left with a feeling that is heavier than shock. It is not excitement or relief. It is awareness. The episode forces viewers to understand that the story has crossed into a more serious phase. What once felt like a fight for control now feels like a fight to survive the consequences of that control. This shift is what makes the finale hit differently from previous seasons. The emotional weight of this episode comes from restraint. The show does not over-explain what characters are feeling. Instead, it allows their silence and stillness to speak. This